Thank you for the introduction earlier, right? So today I really like the topic. It's plenty English from the start, right? If you said it's afternoon for people trading naira, it's not afternoon because it's already past the window, which is like 2 p.m. or 4 p.m.
Afternoon or no, that means you're Japan. So for us that here, it's afternoon.
The jackpot is what's the way you are. I'm in Uganda, and the currency here to the dollar is 3,830.
Patrick,
So it's different. It's not jackpot at all. It's just shifting from fire pan to fire. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining. I'll be spending the next couple of minutes just trying to break down FX regulations in the past couple of years actually, and I'll tell you why. If I were to just start from like last month, you may not appreciate like how this whole thing has played out over time. So what I'll try to do is probably go back to 2020 because it has like some very, very significant move. And I think it's like from 2020, we started seeing like a lot of major moves by the central bank down to what we now have from last month and this month, essentially. And I like the question that Payment Log asked on LinkedIn earlier, which is like, what's like your concern? My own main concern is that like every other week, we're just churning out circulars to see how we can just like keep Naira at like 1,500 against the dollar. But that only works for like maybe a few hours or a few days, and then it jumps back up, right? It's like we're trying to press the neck and then the thing is not, it's just like holding on to the motto of this year. No grief for anybody. So for me, the major concern is I feel like we've been addressing the symptoms. We've not been trying to solve for the root cause, or like we've not been treating the ailment. It's like when someone goes to a doctor, you say you have headache, you have stomach ache, and you have this, you have that. And then the person prescribes a drug for the headache, maybe paracetamol, and a drug for the stomach ache separately. But they don't solve the problem. So you feel relief after that day, or you feel relieved after that day, and then subsequently it doubles. It's just like when you don't take anti-malaria drug, you start first day, you see like the next day or the third day becomes worse. That's essentially what we've been doing. And I really hope that we get it right before things become like really, really ugly. And that's like the reason behind my quotes there. The scope of this conversation would only cover like Nigerian regulations. So I won't go into like other countries, but we'll try to focus more on like the circulars from 2020. I would not also cover statistics because I was saying I will leave that to Payment Log to do that work. It would have been very interesting to have like each circular, right? And I mean, this is like something I'm pitching to Payment Log and that we can work on together. To have like each circular or each policy as regarding FX and be able to tell like the percentage change, right? Between when that circular was implemented and what happened after that circular, before like the next circular, right? Reason is that it should be good to be able to track the impact of each circular, right, as the CBN issues them, right, over time, and then see like which circular was most impactful in like solving this problem versus like other circulars that just feels like they're just drumming in deaf ears, right? So starting from 2020, what happened in 2020 is essentially a reverse of what is happening now. So if you look at 2020, during MFLA's regime, or during the old regime as it were, there were 4 very important circulars in 2020 that were issued. The first is they mandated that all remittances should be paid only through correspondent banks. So when IMTOs are bringing money to Nigeria, they needed to disburse that money only through correspondent banks, right? That is one. Now, the second thing is, okay, you know what, the same month, just like it happened between last month and this month, that's the exact way it happened in 2020. So the same month, they came back and said, hey, look, we think IMTOs are benefiting from this whole, that like racketing and making a lot of money from this whole thing. So what we need to do is make sure they actually pay that USD to people. And in all fairness to the CBN, it's not like they were wrong. Why? Because what IMTOs were doing was not remittance. A lot of the IMTOs were not doing remittance at that point. A lot of the IMTOs were doing currency swaps. There's like a difference between the two regimes. So what happens with currency swap is you will take dollar from offshore, like the US, for example, or take GBP from the UK. Then you will now look for someone that has Naira in Nigeria, right? Borrow Naira or get Naira, whichever way you will, and then pay whoever has that obligation. Then you take that USD that you have collected and go and sell it to those people that are trying to move money out of the country at very ridiculous rates. So the margin that they're potentially making on those transactions was a lot. So, and because of that, CBN was looking and wasn't seeing money coming to Nigeria. And that's where the statistics comes in. It would be good to see what the state of things were before this circular was issued, to see if money were actually not coming into the country, and then to judge maybe like 3 months down the line, right, whether like money started coming in. Because 3 months down the line, the CBN actually issued another circular, right, amongst other circulars. But that's like the first part. And then they talked about it again. Normally, like in those days, when people send you money, it will take like maybe 2 working days, 7 working days sometimes, through international money transfer for you to get the money locally. But now it's instant. So someone sends you money from the US, what happens? There's a currency swap, and then someone is just disbursing directly to the recipient account locally. So it happens immediately, right? Which is, from an innovation perspective, it is good. But from an economics perspective, I don't think it makes good sense, because then the USD is not coming in. I mean, I'm not trying to fight for the government, but if you look at it very well, if the money is not coming in, then it means like in Nigeria, dollar will become scarce. And then, of course, the prices would naturally go up. So that is one theory, right? And I say it's a theory because there are other things that I won't bother to go into that could have cost a lot of other things. So what the CBN had to do at that point was, okay, you know what? We're going to shut down all local Naira accounts owned by IMTOs. And we're going to only allow them have accounts that they can use for their operations. Of course, you don't want to shut down all of their accounts that they will not even be able to operate again. So CBN did that, essentially, right? And that was like the next one you see in December. So December, they issued 2 circulars as well. The last circular they issued in December regarding this was to tell PSPs, or like payment companies, to disable all IMTOs. So now, as a payment company, you cannot process for an IMTO. Don't forget that the technology used, right, then was that once they receive the money in USD, the USD leg, they use the PSPs to do a disbursement directly or transfer directly into people's bank account locally. But with these 4 circulars, what it means is that they need to go through proper channels and actually bring the money through like correspondent banks into the authorized dealers, which is like deposit money banks, right? So that the money can actually come in. So it will be good to see what the statistics looks like. But if you look at this year now, it's a total different thing. It's like 360, right? It's like turning the whole thing on its head. So in 2021, quite an interesting year as well, right? A couple of things happened. First, in February, CBN came back and said, okay, we've done this IMTO thing, but we're not seeing so much changes. Which other person is causing this problem for us? Oh, there's like crypto. People are doing a lot of crypto transactions. So instead of moving money through proper channels, they're moving money through cryptocurrency. So we don't have line of sight. There's money laundering. There's a lot of things. So we want to like stop people from doing this one. So we're not saying we're making crypto illegal, because as of this time, in fact, as at 2020, there was a national blockchain policy, right, by NITDA, SEC, and a couple of stakeholders, including the CBN. So what it meant is that if they went back to say, oh, we were declaring crypto illegal, it will not make any sense. So what they did instead is like tell bank, okay, in 2017, we advised you that you should take caution in dealing with crypto companies. But now the advice is different. Stop providing bank accounts to crypto companies, and you PSPs, stop processing for crypto companies. Send us the list of all crypto companies that you have been dealing with so far. So this also happened, right? Whilst everybody said it's targeted at money laundering, I don't think that's the only target, because that is the only reason why down the line this same year, right? Or like I think the year after, you found the CBN going after the likes of Bamboo, RiseVest, and everybody to say, oh, these ones are still doing crypto, because how are they getting liquidity that they are moving that is not showing with the banks, right? How are they doing their treasury where they are buying foreign stocks for people and they're paying people in USD and the thing is not showing? So they must be doing crypto. I've told banks to not support crypto. So these people must be doing something wrong. So I don't think personally, and I think immunity would cover me. Abi, let me just make sure. All right. So Jadi, I hope immunity covers me. I don't want someone to come and drag me tomorrow. But I essentially believe that the ban on crypto, the ban on banks dealing with crypto was as a result of like FX crisis ultimately. Now, probably, because I don't have the statistics, probably CBN was still not seeing a lot of changes. So in March, they said, okay, you know what? If you bring the dollar, don't worry, we'll give you more money in Naira. So we'll give you 5 Naira, or we'll give you 50 Naira. Just bring dollar, right? So that it can encourage people to bring in dollar, sell to the banks, and then there will be more money in the economy. I also don't think this worked, or it worked well, because the amount I'm going to sell it to an aboki, I will make more than 5 Naira sharp. So why would I sell to the government and make less? I don't want to sell. I want to sell to aboki. And thank God you have said they should not pay me in Naira. So it means they will definitely pay me in dollars. So I can always go and meet my aboki friend and sell this thing to them. Especially because at this stage, abokis only had $20,000 in allocation weekly. So at the end of the month, they only had $80,000. Given the demand, there will be like a whole lot of demand in the ecosystem than the aboki had with the CBN to actually provide. But then CBN looked at it and said, so you want to carry money to aboki, you don't want to sell to bank. Okay, we know what we'll do. Aboki, we are stopping allocation to you. We are no longer giving you the $20,000 we're giving you weekly anymore. So like you don't have access to that, right? And then on top of that, everybody that has applied for BDC license, come and take your money. We are not doing it again, right? Everybody that has an existing BDC license, if you like, go and be sourcing for the dollar the way you source it, and go and be doing your trade on your own. We are disowning you, right? Because they looked at the statistics, right? And they said every week they were giving abokis $110 million every week. That is a lot of money, because at the end of at the end of the quarter, I mean, you've basically dished out billions of dollars, right? Ultimately. So this was like a major issue, because they're not seeing the dividend of actually giving this. And the rate between the parallel rate and the market is like almost 100 Naira, right? I mean, there's a lot of racketeering that's also happening, to be honest. I believe so, right? I might be wrong. But I mean, ultimately, it means we're just giving money to these guys and they're just selling anyhow they like and making money. As a matter of fact, you see that people no longer were applying, like people were no longer applying for single BDC license. In fact, as of 2021, right, I remember then processing like BDC license for a couple of people. And people will come to me and be like, I want to apply for 20 BDC licenses. I want to apply for 10 BDC licenses. And you're wondering, what are you doing with the BDC license? But apparently, what they do is get all of these BDC licenses so that they can essentially get up to $1 million, right, in a month. And then they can make so much margin. So imagine someone getting $1 million in a month and getting like 100 Naira margin on each million, right, and on each dollar, and then selling. That's essentially like 100 million Naira, no sweat. Good business. It was making good sense. So because of all of this, right, you need to take a step back again, right? CBN had to look at this and said, okay, you know what? Let us stop these guys and see where they will get money from, right? And then that was that. Now, there's something we call Hawala, which is essentially currency swap. Hawala was still ongoing. A lot of the fintechs you find around didn't have a license. So they would either go and get like an MSB license in the US or Canada, or get an SPI license in the UK, or get EMI license in either Cyprus or Luxembourg, and then come to Nigeria and then be doing IMTO activity. The thing with a lot of customers is once they see that I have some kind of license, it gives a level of comfort, right? So they will still deal with you. So people continued this whole swap thing. And of course, it didn't benefit anybody because there was no dollar. The guys that were bringing the dollar in were selling to Aboki. Aboki was reselling at a higher price, right? And the way it works, right, within the ecosystem is, currency swap, like to swap currencies. Sorry about that. So the way this thing works is when the Aboki gets the money and sells to you today at 700, tomorrow when you want to sell the one that you got, an Aboki says 680. You will argue that no, Aboki, I want to sell 700, right? Then you go to another Aboki till you get the Aboki that will buy it at a good price. If Aboki is not saying to buy, of course, day to day will adjust the rate because the rule is always to buy low and sell high. And you will see how all of that rule comes into play as we move along. In 2022, there was really nothing much, right, in the space. Exactly. So if that was like, that's another problem, right? I feel like the regulators are not focusing on the right things per time. For example, they focus on the noise and abandon the substance. See it this way. And I mean, it's not just about regulators. It's like, it's a common thing. Even I do it. Everybody does. If you go on Twitter today, that's why you see that like Yahoo people, sorry to digress, Yahoo people, like fraudsters, as they are called, right, would perpetrate a fraud with a gateway or wherever, or with a bank, and then go on Twitter. Once the bank tweets anything, they will go under it. You're holding my 5 million. You're holding my this. Release my money. This, to blackmail the company and make sure the company, because what everybody now focuses on is the noise. They don't look at the substance anymore. So that is the same trick that is happening here. And I'll tell you why. A lot of all of these policies, if you look very clearly, has actually focused on P2P remittance. Nobody is looking at B2B, right? P2P remittance has a lot of volume, which is like the number of transactions, the number of people transacting is high. So it's in everybody's face. But B2B has the money itself. If you look at a lot of businesses bringing money to Nigeria today, I don't even think CCI regime exists anymore. CCI is Certificate of Capital Importation. Ordinarily, when you bring in money as a business, you're supposed to go and obtain that certificate, right? But because there's no penalty, right? If you don't get a CCI today, the only thing is that there won't be an incentive for you, right? The incentive to move money out will not be there. But there are like thousands of other ways. You go to use technology agreements, go to NOTAP, go and sign this state. Your holdco is the owner of the technology that provide, right? But the thing is that if you brought in money from the holdco to do business and you don't get a CCI and move the money, so that's what a lot of people do. But you'll not be able to get it at CBN rates. But that would have made sense at a point where they've not collapsed everything as it is today. So, which brings us to 2023. Now, 2023, the major event happened in June, right? When the new government came and was also trying to like look at the issue and try to solve it from their perspective based on what they've seen so far, right? And I feel like there's a lot of trying to wing a lot of things instead of stepping back again to solve the problem from the roots. It will take time, but all of this temporary solution will not, it will just distract. So the temporary solutions will distract, the rates will come down, then it will shoot back up, But like, why not just leave the rates, leave everything, and focus for like 1 year, have a 1 year, 2 year plan, and say, this is our plan towards solving this problem more permanently. Or like 5-year plan, it doesn't matter. Then focus on solving it. I think it makes more sense. But that's like my own personal sentiment. Now, the first thing they did was, okay, you know what? All of these people getting money, I think there's like a lot of rackets going on. Let us stop them. Let us say everybody, willing seller, willing buyer, float the naira, devalue it. Let the market determine how much it should be. Right? So, so now, Jali, you're making me sing Purest of the Poor in my head, but yeah. So, I mean, but there's like a lot of sense in it, ultimately. Now, they unified the exchange rate, which is okay. There's nothing like CBN rates and parallel rates. But then there's still a difference. Why? Because despite the unification, right, they are still telling the banks that banks, you cannot sell above this amount. But yes, this is what the black market too is supposed to be selling ultimately, right? Because they wanted to be able to regulate it without regulating it. So that was there, but it wasn't working like as it should. Then they talked about it again that, okay, maybe this 2020 circular where we had blocked Naira accounts owned by the IMTOs was maybe it didn't make sense. Let us allow them get back their accounts. So allow IMTOs open Naira accounts so they can actually bring the money. But again, I also think this is just like laying the foundation for what is about to happen this year. Because, I mean, we are not seeing into the future. As of the time this was done, all we thought is that, okay, so now they will be able to license some IMTOs specifically, and IMTOs will be able to perform the functions just the way things used to work. So they can actually pay people in Naira, and then the IMTOs will have the USD, right? They did this, it didn't really change anything as much. But from a fintech perspective, you know, there were 4 things, or let's just say 2 major things that happened, which is shut down IMTO Naira accounts and then shut down IMTO relationship with PSPs as of 2020. Now we are saying, okay, open IMTO Naira account. Are you also, by this circular, saying PSSPs can now work with IMTOs? The law was silent on that issue, which is still a problem till date. So some PSPs are not sure whether to work with IMTO or not, right? I can't also say because the law has not said so. But I feel like for you to be able to operate as an IMTO to disburse Naira that they said you should pay, you will definitely need the support of PSPs. So technically or operationally or procedurally, I feel like what is pragmatic in this case is to enable people actually pay using existing guys in the market. So that's that. So that happened in July. Now, in August, sorry, I didn't put that here, but before September, in August, CBN thought they needed to regulate pricing, which is these IMTOs, this pricing that people are marking up on the amounts they are using to do either like inflow or outflow, right? We need to regulate it, right? We need to find a way to solve this problem. So they listed certain activities, certain services, right? And the pricing, the allowable pricing for each of those activities, right? To regulate it. Then in September, they now singled out the rates that can be quoted, the maximum rates that can be quoted for money remittance, right? You know, if you remember what I said about buying low, selling high, right? So when you buy low, which is the person has USD, has given you USD to bring Naira, right? When you buy low, you cannot charge less than minus 2.5% of the rate, right? You can't do that because again, it would be like pricing it too low and there will not be incentive to sell, right? But when you are also selling, which is you want to do outbound, and I will speak to that in a bit. I think I'll just wait till 2024 to speak to that. When you're doing outbound, right? For those that are permitted to do outbound, because for the longest time, CBN wasn't issuing outbound licenses. I can't, to be honest, in my life practicing, I've not seen one outbound license. If you have seen, please just indicate in the chat. It will be very, very interesting to see. So, which means on outbound, you can only mark up 2.5% and nothing more, right? So that is essentially what this regime set out to do in 2023. But one would expect that because like of all of these things that they've put in place this year, there will be more people bringing in money. At least IMTOs too are making money from it and everything. But to be honest, a lot of people are greedy. But you also will not blame them because fintechs, as it were, will raise VC money. What they are maximizing for is 10x. 2x is nothing. So you want to just continue to maximize profit. So instead of looking at the market, you want to just continue to push to maximize profit, which is also not helpful. Now, 2024, which is where we are, there are like 4 or 5 circulars between last month and this month. However, I'm going to focus on 3 of them. Why? Because 3 of them basically covers the entire thing, right? There's really like others are just like more of repetition, right? And the very first bit is January 29, right? Going back to say this pricing that we said people can do, first, cancel it. Don't do it again. Now start doing it on willing buyer, willing seller basis. So this is how much Malik is willing to pay for USD to transfer. This is how much you're willing to sell. Like, let people trade freely. The expectation is that if you allow people trade freely, then people will be able to, the market itself will determine what the actual rate should be, and then speculation will drop. Because if you look at all of this, across all of these years, one thing that has continued to like drive up or drive down the rates has been market speculation, which is someone who just wake up because he has maybe $10 billion. Just wake up and say, this $10 billion, I know they sell them for anything less than X, right? And all of the other people who put it on different platforms, this is how much it is being sold. It gets complicated round, and that is the price. There is no economic, in fact, I had a time when I told the clients that, oh, Naira was, I think at the time it was like 800. And then the next day they came back to me, that was last year or so. Was it last year? Yeah, early last year. They came back and I said, sorry, it is now 900 and something. And they were like, okay, what happened? So I said, oh, because I was looking for an excuse because I didn't want my country to feel like we don't have sense. So I thought of something to tell them. And I said, oh, there's an ongoing, there's an ongoing war between, no, not ongoing war. There's a potential war that might happen between Nigeria and probably Mali or like Niger Republic or something of that nature. I've forgotten the excuse I gave. That probably the rumor of that war is what is causing the problem. And the guy was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, thank God you understood that one. The next month, when the thing became 1,000 something, he came back, he said, is there a war again? I said, I don't know. But that's just how it is. I mean, it's like very difficult to predict what will happen next, right? So I feel like a lot of these things was born out of market speculation. And probably CBN was also looking at it and saying, you know what, guys, we need to allow this thing to flow very freely. Let Malik be able to say, this is how much I want to sell my dollar. If you don't buy, I'll keep it at home. When he keeps it at home, the thing is that hunger will wire him, he will bring it out because he cannot spend dollars. He needs to spend Naira, right? So, but again, like I said, I think we are focusing too much on individuals because how much is the money with individuals compared to how much the money is with businesses? Don't say I said so before they now say it's because I said something that they now started focusing on businesses. But yeah, I feel like the money is more on the business side, but they're focusing on individuals. Now, in January 31, to further drive this point home, the CBN came out and said, you know what, that circular that we spoke about, right, allowing you to charge a rate of minus 2.5% plus 2.5% in September, right? We are saying we are removing it so that we can further drive this point home, right? And from this point onward, we are now bringing in an entirely new law to ensure that everybody is doing what needs to be done, right? And that is what essentially led us to where we are with the new guideline on international money transfer services in Nigeria today. And there's like important points in this law, which I mean cannot be overemphasized. The law is beautiful if you look at it very carefully. But there's like some ambiguity in the law, right? Which I mean I would speak to in the next 5 minutes, right? So the first bit is that the law is saying applicants must have a minimum share capital requirement of $1 million. The old requirement used to be 2 billion for Nigerian companies. And then for foreign companies, it used to be $50,000 or like 50 million naira, right? Application fee was 500,000, right? But now the law did not say whether this amount, this $1 million needs to be paid up or it should just be something that you declare as your share capital and you don't need to bring the actual funds or pay the money per se. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. If the law had the intention to say you don't need to bring the money, it means they've lowered the barrier to entry for anybody looking to apply for an IMTO license, which is good, right? The 10 million naira fee will not matter to you because even if you are paying it every year, the fact that you don't have to go and raise $1 million to apply for an IMTO license just makes a whole lot of sense. It makes a whole lot of sense, right? So that's on that point. I mean, if they interpret it literally without saying we made a mistake, I feel like it's good, right? Now, the application fee is now 10 million, right? But the problem is that you need to now pay it annually and you need to pay before January 31st of the new year. So which means people would have ended up paying 10 million fee this year. That wasn't there before, right? But it's now a requirement. On this issue with fintechs, problem I have with it is the law did not define who fintechs are. And fintech, as it were, sounds like two words, but it's a very broad topic. I mean, you have fintech in like payment services. Even under payment services, you now have like different payment services, right? You have card payments, you have different channels, right? And in different people focusing on the different channels. Mobile money is different from card service, right? It's different from offline transaction, different from online transaction, right? NFC and QR, maybe you bucket it under terminal, but like there's like levels to this thing. And I mean, I feel like Payment 360 is doing a lot of good work on that front already. So it will be helpful for you to take the course. But the primary thing here is it didn't define what fintechs are. There's WorldTech, is still part of fintech. There's LendTech, is part of fintech. There's a lot of them. I can't even think of like everything right now. It's extensive. So you want to look at it from that perspective. Is it that saying that, okay, if PiggyVest wants to now go and apply for an IMTO license, they will not give PiggyVest or money points. They will not give money points or Paystack, which are like different models, different fintech models, if you look at it very carefully, right? But I gave it a personal interpretation because I was privy to have worked on the regulation on what's it called? I was privy to have reviewed, not worked on, sorry, to reviewed the Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act, which is BOFIA, right? Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, sorry, which is BOFIA, when it was like the initial drafts were done. And the initial draft that was done, there's a place in the act that says PSPs, right? That part, initially, what was written there was fintechs, right? Before it got corrected, because again, like this same ambiguity here was what was addressed in that law, and which is a good point. So I'm thinking it is the same ambiguity that was brought into this regime, right? And what the law actually meant to say was PSPs. Now, if you look at PSP regimes, there's like different categories. There's the payment companies, right, which are like the PSSPs, payment solution service, payment service solution provider. Yeah. Or the MMOs, which is the mobile money operators, or the switching companies, right? Or the super agents, or the like all of those guys in that category, or even Sandbox, because I added it as part of the category, or the PSS, which combines a couple of licenses, or the PTSP, which is essentially the terminal service providers, POS, or the PTSA now, because it is now open. It used to be dedicated to the NIBSS, but now it's open. So it could be all of those guys in that category that this law is saying you cannot get it. And it is understandable if that is what the law is saying, because if you have a PSSP license, I know a company that has that anyways. If you have a PSSP license and have an IMTU license, then you can be doing the Awala like on a normal basis, which is the currency swap. You just collect the USD, you use your PSSP, do disbursement locally. Everything is in-house, Parapo organization. If there's a problem, you report. You already communicated whatever you are reporting, cook your books, send to CBN. So those can be like potential issues. Then you see people start commingling funds. The money that the PSP collects, right, that they are supposed to use for what you call for customer payout or merchant payout, right? They will use it to do the Naira leg for their international remittance service and keep the USD to do B2B remittance or what have you. So those were like problems from this. And I mean, it's understandable why the CBN is thinking about it in this light. And there's something about like agents in the law where the law says, oh, agents are allowed to work with IMTOs and all of that. Agents are essentially banks. It is not fintechs or PSPs as it were. So you need to like also know that one. Now, in the old law, the scope of remittance activities used to cover only person to person. Now, business to business and business to person transfers are now allowed under this new regime, which is good. Trust me, it's a good provision, because before now, when you apply as a fintech that wants to provide IMTO service, right, and you want to do it for B2B, you can't do it because if you get an IMTO license, it restricts your activity to B2B. So that IMTO license at the end of the day becomes useless to the nature of your business. Then you start looking for how you sell it. So that used to be a huge problem in the past, right? But with this new regime now, that has been taken out. Then, I mean, like I said, I've not seen outward money IMTO license before, right? And I feel like what this law has basically done is just put a seal and a stamp on that regime. Outside MoneyGram and Western Union, I don't think anybody really, I mean, like those OGs in the IMTO business, I don't think any other person really does outbound, right? So yes, from Nigeria outwards. Yes, that's what I mean, Victor. Right. So, but now the law has made it express that you can't move the money from Nigeria out as an IMTO. You can only bring money in, so that the money can come in. Let the money come in and let the dollar flood everywhere. And there's like dollar available. When there's no scarcity, the prices will drop. Exactly. So, Victor, that's the issue. People will now revert back to continue doing swaps for outbound money transfer, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they come back and say, oh, anybody that does swap, it will be illegal. But the truth is, how would you know? Because it's not the regulated guys that will do it ultimately. Now, for inbound money transfers to Nigeria, now it should be paid in Naira, right? Contrary to the 2020 circular that says it must be paid in dollars, right? And you cannot pay any amount more than $200 in cash going forward, right? And then, I mean, default exchange rate is applicable, which is willing buyer, willing seller basis. So you cannot just like wake up and put any rates that you like. So market rates will determine, right? And then maximum charges that can be imposed, because now they could be like transfer fees and all of those things now will be stipulated. So there's a law that CBN has on guides to bank charges and things like that. So it's like different sets of guides in that law. So I believe that law might be amended to also include or stipulate the relevant charges that can be charged on the IMTO front, right? So any amount above $200 needs to be put in an account. So you get it in your Naira account, essentially. So you will not get it in cash. And if you don't have an account, they will create an account for you and put the money in that account. You can't collect it in cash. The essence of it is when you are collecting the money in cash, you are also like deviating from, you're also creating another problem that CBN is trying to solve, which is essentially to move cashless, right? So it's just creating more problems, essentially. My recommendations for fintechs generally is like broadly, I think 4, but I think I've listed only 3 here. It is either you think of becoming a financial technical partner or a foreign technical partner to a licensed IMTO, right? So that you get an IMTO abroad, then in Nigeria, you say you're providing technology, then you work with the IMTO, right? And I mean, I can explain in detail because I don't have enough time, but like you can essentially structure it in such a way that you can use the IMTO license, right? And your own technology service for the IMTO, but you're not providing money remittance service, right? There's a way that can be structured. There's also you getting a hold co, right? That would then apply for the license separately. And then you keep your PSP here doing payments business. There's also that, right? Then you may also want to consider, which I mean, I don't know if he is able to help here. I don't see it in the ecosystem, and I feel like it's high time someone built it. That's like card-to-card solutions. I should be able to just take my card, right? Put the card number and everything on the platform and pay and put someone else's card details on that same platform and say, I want to pay from this card to this card. And the person is able to get it on their card and then goes to the ATM to withdraw the money or withdraws the money from their card to their bank accounts directly or something like that. It will be really interesting to see, but like it's something that people should like start thinking about because it would also solve this problem one way or the other if you look at it, right? I mean, partnerships with, yeah, the risk involved risks would always exist. And that is why controls would also always exist, right? So if there are several risks involved, like, I mean, fraud and all of that, right? Yes, it is almost the same thing as account to account, but because there are restrictions on account to account now, right? If you look at it very well. So if you transfer from one account, the other accounts cannot receive it in USD. But if you take it through the payment route, away from the banking and correspondent banking and IMTO conversation, and you put it on the schemes, if someone pays you using USD card today, the bank will still settle in USD. Don't forget. So despite all of this drama happening, there's that loophole. So, I mean, this is just me thinking through everything that can be done essentially, but like happy to hear your own feedback. Sorry, I think I'm over time by 2 minutes, but happy to take any questions.
I have a question, but I don't want to go first. Does any other person?
I'm already typing a question. So one of the things that wasn't too clear for me with this new IMTO regulation, this doesn't affect getting like FX into your DOM account, does it?
It does. It does. So it does in the sense that if you are going to get FX as an individual, now not as a corporate, because corporates can still do that. The law did not touch on it. If you're going to get money into your DOM account, right, what the law is saying now is that they need to pay that money like in Naira and not dollars, where the money is coming.
So anybody that wants to send me money into my DOM account now, it's practically impossible.
I mean, Naira, yes. That's why you find that like a lot of the IMTOs now have like remodeled. Some of them even like stopped sending money to Nigeria. But like a lot of them, they've changed the settings. You can't send USD. So it will, once you go on their platform, you can see the amounts that come in Naira. And once you disburse, it will go in Naira. It won't come in USD. However, like I said, there are other ways to do it. You can either say, oh, they're paying for a service, and it's just that like you're collecting the money as an individual and be able to make a distinction, because there's a distinction between monies received for like services and like remittance, like diaspora remittance or remittance whatsoever. So people dashing you money is different from people paying you money for like a service that you have provided.
Or like a remote worker working remotely salary. So, but
How
how
do you
will
know
you
the
make that
difference?
distinction? Yeah.
Sorry?
How will you be able to make that distinction? To who?
I mean,
To
so
what
at the bank,
platform? Okay.
exactly. So the question is, what platforms would you be able to use for that? I'm not aware of like I'm very sure that it's not going to be through remittance companies. It would most likely be through banks, right? Sending it from one bank to your own bank, right? And providing invoice or receipts or things like that from the foreign bank, right? To show what that money is for. That is the only way you can tell the difference. But if you're just going to send money to someone without all of those like receipts and invoice and like business transactions, I don't think it will come in USD. And that's like the difference between when you're looking at remittance purely and you're looking at like business transfers.
Sorry, I just need a little clarification on your response, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
I have an account in USD. I have an account in USD with GTB, for example.
As an individual, right?
As an individual.
Yeah.
A DOM account with GTB, for example, and then I get paid in USD for maybe. So what you are saying right from this law is that the payment, once I get to the bank, I can only withdraw in Naira.
Exactly. For remittance. But if it's for business purposes, where there's like, exactly, you may be able to, and I say may because there are circulars that I may not be privy to that might have just been issued only to the banks, right? And I haven't done it personally, but I'm sure from business to business that works. If it comes in USD, you're going to get in USD. That hasn't changed. Or individual accounts, because individuals can actually do business, right? So, but I need to show that it's like business proceeds essentially.
Yes.
And that's why whenever people talk about the rumors of CBN converting people's money from dollar to naira, I don't think that is what will happen, right? I think what will happen is if you want to go and withdraw that money, they can say we'll pay you in naira, even though it came in USD. But that hasn't even like been issued. I don't think CBN has done that. They've not done that. Both for business and personal accounts. If you have your money in USD, you can still go to the counter and ask for your money in USD, they will give you, right? Especially if the purpose is like business related. But another thing you also want to note is that a lot of international banks usually do not agree to send money to personal accounts these days. I don't know why, but if you try to like send money from like a foreign account to a personal account in Nigeria, they will tell you it has to be business related or something. So that's also like an issue.
Interesting stuff. Please, I would like to ask, looking at the statistics, about 3 months ago, thereabouts, Kenya reported that over 50% of their GDP came from remittances. So that means they have a way of,
tracking.
Letting this thing happen, and then the government, can track the remittances. And see, the interesting thing, it's not remittances from outside Africa. These remittances they're talking about is from around Africa. So Kenyans that have jabbered to Nigeria, Kenyans that have jabbered to South Africa, that kind
even
of
to other East African countries,
exactly, are remitting money back, and then the amount is as much as 50% of their current GDP. What do they know that we don't know in Nigeria?
Yes. So like I said, it's a great problem. So it's not like money is not coming in iffy. I feel like money is coming in, but there's no way to track, right? Because there's no incentive to go through appropriate channels to transfer money. It's just so hard, right? In East Africa today, you can use M-Pesa to transfer money from one country to another country seamlessly. I don't know, maybe it's because it has some kind of government backing or some kind of like government relations, but that's possible today. Come back to Nigeria. From Ghana to Nigeria, it's just 1 hour away. you will find it very difficult to move money back home. Even with initiatives like EcoBank and Access Africa and all of those things, it is still very difficult. So honestly, I don't think it's an infrastructure problem, because if Access Bank can do it, then it means it can be done. But like what the issue is, honestly, I feel like some people are just benefiting a lot from it. And because of that, it may not work. That's the thing.
I also wanted to comment, please, before Victor raises his question. I wanted to comment on the card-to-card thing, and I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, about it actually being account to account, because cards in themselves don't hold value as such. Yeah, so there are three kinds of cards that all of us know. Credit cards that we don't really use a lot. The market share is very, very then prepaid cards that sort of hold value, but they hold value in wallet system, which is still licensed in Nigeria. And then the normal debit card that is tied to the accounts. So if you look at, all the rails that are possible, you doing a card to a card really doesn't pass through the scheme from a money storing perspective. It still passes through licensed entities that also hold cash. Exactly. So you're either looking at a Paga or OPay if it's a wallet system, or you're looking at a bank, exactly, if it's an account system. So those guys are still licensed by CBN, and the rules will still apply. So
so the rule would apply, but let's not forget that the regime that applies to them is slightly different from the IMTO regime. So they also have their own international remittance regime, which is the IMMRS, which is International Mobile Money Remittance Service. It's different from the IMTO. And if you look at it, the only law that was amended is the IMTO one. They haven't touched the IMMRS.
Okay, so I'll need to go and look at the IMMRS. But if you start with PSBs, I don't know about, I forgot about MMOs, but I know PSBs are not even allowed to touch foreign remittance to start with. That that takes them out of it altogether. I don't know about Paga, the MMOs. I'm not sure about them.
So MMOs.
Okay, go on.
So MMOs are allowed to apply separately for IMMRS license. It's not a license like an approval. So when you get your MMO license, right, you can go and apply under the IMMRS regime for an international remittance license. Although it is inbound only, just like this existing regime. And it's an old regime. It's been there. I feel like a couple of people in the ecosystem has it. I think Paga has something like that. I don't know if OP has, but like a number of MMOs have that approval, right? And that approval, except there's another circular that was issued to them specifically, right? That approval that they gave them is governed by a different law. And I feel like they can take advantage. Well, yeah.
One last question on this. Sorry, Victor. Whether they give them the license or not, where would the money be settled? Are those guys under the IMTO regime where the money will be ultimately settled? It will be deposit money bank,
like ultimately, but then because MMOs can actually hold wallets. But I mean, there's also a small this thing that hasn't been reversed, because I remember that like in 2020, part of the circulars that they had issued touched on MMOs, right? Ensuring that they don't open accounts for USD collections or something like that. Something in relation to that, but I need to check what that law said. But I think it touched on MMOs as well, right? But what I'm saying is, at least there's that IMMRS, except I'm going to interpret it holistically. It is untouched, and they should be able to leverage it. Yes, the money will come to the banks, and it will come in USD, but like at least it shall come, one way or the other. Maybe they may not be able to also pay it to the customer in USD. That's another problem, actually. Yeah,
because all the accounts, all the wallets in an MMO terminates at a account in the bank. So that thing will still.
Yeah, they'll
Victor,
still be
over
capped.
to you. Sorry.
Yes. So for me, the question I had is thinking about this whole IMTO thing and having to remit in Naira, this just sort of encourages currency swap. Because if I'm paying out in Naira anyways, it doesn't mean I have no reason to bring the dollar into the country. So I might as well, and now they have Naira accounts and we still don't know where they stand with partnering with PSPs. So I'm not sure this exactly solves the problem they're trying to solve. I'm just thinking out loud, and I just thought to clarify if my thought was correct.
No, your thought is correct. That is what would eventually happen. But what the CBN would also try to do is to, again, all remittance now is reported by banks, right? So part of the January circular has given banks a template to make sure that they report all form of remittance to the CBN. So if there's a swap happening, right, it will not fall under that. And I feel like they will now start looking at like the entities that are specifically providing that and then start going after their bank accounts, most likely. So I've had people get their bank account frozen by banks, right, with narration of illegal BDC, illegal money transfer, those kind of things. So you may also get that ultimately. But yes, in practical sense, it would encourage swaps.
But I think you have the floor.
Jade, over to you.
Jade, are you frozen?
I think she's frozen. My internet is a bit iffy. Let me use Ify's name for our internet.
Malik, thank you so much for this session. It's very, very, very enlightening. I feel it should be part of a mini, it's a mini course and should be part of a larger course.
So now I'm talking.
Jade is back now. Okay, Jade, take over.
I was there the whole time. I heard everything. I was not frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know what's wrong with MTN, but they just decided to disgrace me. Yes, Godwin, the video would be available on our YouTube channel and she'll be able to watch it there. I would send a message to the Slack community when the video is fully ready. But thank you very much, Malik. Honestly, like if you said, this was very, very insightful. You broke things down for us, like clearly. Like me, I think I finally got how the DOM accounting works, and I'm really glad you're able to do this. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Maliko, once again. We had an awesome session. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We see you guys again in the next community forum. Before then, like I said, let's engage the community better.